All right. I got my headset installed and everything so that we can have some better audio quality on the video. So this is CDL school. I'm going to CDL University. This is week 2, day 1, or day 6 total overall. This is Monday. Just got home. It's 4:44. Um, I left sometime shortly after 4 o'clock. Got home about 4:30 ish. So this is going to be a bit of a rant, a bit of me venting. So it's going to be a little negative. Um, so basically, all we did today was we came in, we did our log books, and then we went outside to one of the trucks and went over pre-trip. Then we drove around the rest of the day. We just took turns driving. Everyone drove for approximately an hour and a half, and everybody that wasn't driving sat in the back. So it was a very long, boring day. In total, I only did, my hour and a half of driving plus maybe 15 minutes of pre-trip. So out of an 8-hour day, I did stuff for an hour and 45 minutes, and the rest was just sitting there. That's not what I'm venting about. That's just the way the day goes there. They don't have an instructor and a truck for every single person. The class size is actually pretty small in comparison to most of these CDL schools. The last CDL school I went to 15, 20 years ago, it was like 10 people in the class, and we only had one truck. I think they were supposed to have 2 trucks, but the other one was broke down. So we got very, very, very little drive time in that class. It's a good thing I'm a quick learner. The venting is 2 things, and they both basically come back to Russ, which is the new instructor that they're training. So the very first thing we did after our logbooks, we got our logbooks caught up. Then we went outside and we started doing a pre-trip. Well, for anybody who doesn't know what a pre-trip is, it's a vehicle inspection. If you drive an automobile, if you are licensed in the United States to drive a car or a vehicle of any kind, most people don't know it, but you are required by law to perform a vehicle inspection or a pre-trip prior to driving that vehicle. Some people may remember that on their driving test whenever they initially got their license, and they had to check all the lights and stuff like that, make sure that their seatbelt was on. A pre-trip for a regular driver's license, I have no idea what it is now because I got licensed a long time ago. But it was basically just make sure you have a seatbelt, make sure your wipers work, make sure all your lights work, and you don't have a flat tire. I think that was basically all the pre-trip was when I got my license. The pre-trip isn't enforced on regular cars. The way it's enforced on regular cars is if you get a ticket for a busted taillight or a light out or something like that, the reason that the officer tickets you and doesn't give you a warning, they're not required to give you a warning. The reason they're not required to give you a warning for having a light out is because you are supposed to perform a pre-trip inspection before driving that vehicle. You should have known the light was out. Well, on commercial vehicles, Class A vehicles, the pre-trip is enforced. You have to log it in your daily activities, and all of your activities, work activities, well, even your off-duty activities when you're a commercial driver on a Class A vehicle, everything you do, you have to log in your logbook. And one of the things you have to log is a pre-trip. Pre-trip's a big thing about getting a license. It's much more in-depth than a normal vehicle inspection that you do to get a normal license. It's it's a pretty big inspection. But the way the CDL school teaches people to do the pre-trip is they have a set list of items that you do in a specific order, and all the instructors are supposed to know that order, and they're supposed to teach every student that order, and everyone's supposed to do it the exact same way so that it's easy to tell where you mess up on it. If you just go in there winging it every time, then it's really hard to tell where you messed up or if you messed up. So everybody does the exact same system. So, explaining all that, we were out doing pre-trip. Number one problem I had with Russ is that I think this is his second or third week at CDL University, and he hasn't taken the time to memorize their pre-trip. He doesn't know it, and he doesn't bother to bring a sheet of, the pre-trip. It's printed out, and he's like too prideful or something to carry around the printout with him of the pre-trip. So we're trying to learn the pre-trip. He's supposed to be teaching it to us, because there's a lot of things on that piece of paper that aren't on that piece of paper, basically. So there's multiple pieces of paper, and the instructors are supposed to be able to tell us like the verbiage to use with specific items and things like that. So it was really frustrating today because I took the time over the weekend to memorize the pre-trip. I haven't memorized any of the verbiage, like what I'm supposed to say. I know all of the order of all the items, but I don't know what exactly I'm supposed to be inspecting on every single item. And it got really frustrating for me today, and I tried not to show how frustrated I was that Russ kept interrupting me and telling me that I was wrong on the order, and he was wrong, and he didn't want to admit that he was wrong once he realized he was wrong. And it seemed like he was trying to make me look stupid or something, and he just kept screwing up. Like, I got to the air compressor and I said that I would, and he said, "That's not the air compressor, that's the power steering pump." And I said, "Well, I thought the power steering pump was back there." And then we started looking at the hoses, and sure enough, it was the air compressor. There were air lines hooked up to it, and the power steering reservoir went to the pump at the back. He didn't admit that he was wrong on that or anything, but there was 3 or 4 times that he interrupted me like that to try to correct me on something that I wasn't wrong on. And then there was no consistency in what he was telling us. Everyone would go up there to do the pre-trip, and he would sit there, and what we were supposed to do is go through the pre-trip, and he would correct anything we did wrong. Well, everyone was just kind of winging it. I don't think anybody memorized the pre-trip but me. And then Russ, of course, didn't know. I'm sure Russ can do a pre-trip his own way, but we're trying to learn it a very specific way. And he was trying to correct people on the order they were doing it in, when in fact he does it in his own little order. It was really, that's all I'm going to say on it. It was really frustrating going through the pre-trip with him, and I just got to the point where I just stopped listening to him and just skipped over it. The other frustrating thing today was that we had done an in-cab inspection twice previously, and Russ was the one that went over that in-cab inspection with us. Well, Cindy is the one that's technically supposed to be training us, but she let Russ train us on some stuff. Well, they stopped letting Russ train us on stuff today. Actually, last Friday, I think they stopped letting Russ train us on stuff. And they kind of let it slip today that what they told us on Friday on why Russ wasn't training us on stuff, it wasn't because he wasn't licensed. They just made that crap up. Cindy told us today that basically what I was just complaining about Russ not knowing, CDL University's way of doing things. She told us that that's basically the reason that he wasn't instructing us on anything anymore. I don't know why they let him do the pre-trip with us this morning, though. But he went and he was helping other people back after that, and we went back to Cindy. And Cindy basically started from square one with us on the in-cab inspection. So we'd already been shown twice by Russ how to do an in-cab inspection. So I got up there to do an in-cab inspection. I started going through things, and Cindy just started interrupting me, like mid-sentence. Cindy is really bad about wanting to talk all the time. You'll be doing the inspection properly, not getting anything wrong, and she'll just interrupt you right in the middle of your inspection, and just throw in a tidbit of information, just something that popped into her head because she hadn't said anything in the last 30 seconds. And it's really, really, really annoying. And then on top of that, she basically she just did the inspection. So after the third item, and she just interrupted me on every single item, I just gave up. And I just let her sit there, and she basically just did the inspection. I didn't say anything the rest of the inspection. And then at the end of the inspection, she said that she was redoing the inspection. I wish she would have explained this before she did it, because it would have been a lot less annoying and a lot less frustrating, because I thought that I was going to do an inspection. And basically, she just did the inspection. She just interrupted me and just kept talking over me doing the inspection. And then afterward, she explained that she didn't like or trust the way that Russ trained us on how to do the in-cab inspection, so she was starting all over, and she was showing us how to do it properly, the CDL University way. If she would have told me that up front, then I wouldn't have tried to do the inspection. I would have just let her done the inspection, and I wouldn't have been so frustrated that she was talking over me while I was trying to do an inspection. So basically, we started dealing with Russ on Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, and then today, Monday, we've had Russ issues. Cindy, has her little minor problems, but most of our problems basically boil down to them trying to train a new instructor. And for some reason, we're having to deal with the brunt of that. And is that a good sentence? We're having to, our specific class, our specific group, not the entire, there are 3 classes going right now. Our class is the one that's having to deal with that, and it's a little annoying. But I think I'm still pretty far along for the first week. I'm gonna just try to do it all on my own. I can memorize the pre-trip on my own, memorize the verbiage on my own. I have resources that I can look into to help me with it. I don't need to have somebody walk me through it or anything. I'm going to pause this for just a second. Sorry about that. I was picking at something and it started bleeding like crazy. I had to get a paper towel. It was just dripping all everywhere. I was like, sorry for anybody that's squeamish. I won't go into any more detail on it. But I had to deal with it right away. But yeah, I can just learn all that stuff on my own. Move that up a little bit. So it's not that big of a deal. The driving portion, I've got the driving down really well. I can't imagine failing the driving portion of the test unless it was just some weird technicality. If I just happen to do a bad turn, if you go up over a curb, which that might, for anybody who's not driven a commercial vehicle, that might sound like something easy to not hit a curb whenever you're doing a driving test. It's not so easy in a commercial vehicle. In a commercial vehicle, you basically have to go and drive into other lanes of traffic to avoid hitting stuff on city streets, because these city streets are not designed for 70-foot vehicles. So it only I was told that if you hit one curb or you go 1 mile per hour over the speed limit, if you do anything illegal, or if you hit a curb, or I don't know what all else, like there's a whole bunch of things that if you do it one time, it's an auto fail. There are a ton of auto fails. The best driver could still auto fail, one of these tests, just out of like maybe you're having a bad day. It doesn't take very much to like just barely bump a curb with one of these vehicles. Or let's say that the light turns yellow when you're 15 feet before the intersection, and the instructor, or not the instructor, but the tester thinks that you could have stopped for that yellow. They can fail you for running a red. It's just I don't even know. It's not easy. But I'm not too worried about the driving. We haven't done any backing yet. I thought we were going to be doing backing today. Probably going to be doing backing tomorrow. And I picked up on the driving, really quick. I got back into that. I'm driving really well. We'll see how easily I catch on to the backing. How much of that I retained. And then my big thing is just the inspection stuff. And I am really hoping that we just stop like dealing with Russ. I hope Russ gets latched onto another class, because with him telling us something different every single time on the inspection stuff, it makes it very, very, very difficult to memorize it. It's like trying to do math tables, and somebody is constantly giving you a different answer for like every one of the math problems, or some of the math problems. And it's just like, what am I supposed to put here? I have no idea what I'm supposed to be saying at this point. Like, last time he told me to say this time he told me to say that. Cindy has even done it a couple of times. She's not quite as bad, but the Cindy and Russ both are just like, they're afraid of saying that they don't know. Like, one of the things that like was okay, two things that I can quick examples that were really irritating today. Toward the end of the day, one of the people who has never driven one of these trucks before in our class asked Cindy if they could shift directly from ninth gear to fifth gear. And Cindy said no. And I said, yes, you can. And then one of the other students said, no, you can't go from ninth to fifth. And I said, yes, you can. This isn't rocket science. Anyone who's driven a manual knows that you can skip gears. And so I tried to explain to them that, yes, you can go directly from ninth to fifth. That's one of the big problems that somebody trying to learn to drive these trucks has, is they'll be coming up to a red light or a stop sign, and they'll be slowing down, and they're being taught to go through all of the gears. Well, they may not have enough time, and they're not proficient enough at shifting to gear down all the way before they get to that red light or stop sign, and that puts them in a position where they roll up on a stop sign or red light real fast, and then they just end up hitting the brakes real hard and trying to throw everybody through the front windshield because they're trying to go through every gear. And I said, no, if you get in that situation where you decelerate quickly, like you're in ninth gear going 40 miles an hour, and you decelerate really quickly down to like 10 miles an hour, you can pop out of ninth and go straight into fifth. And then they relented and said, yeah, in that situation, you could go from ninth to fifth. But and that's what the person was asking. So that's the kind of like frustrating thing. Like it's, and once the instructors get down that path where they've said something, they don't want to backpedal and say that they were wrong. They always want to make up some excuse for it. The other example was what was it? I just had it. Let me hit pause while I think for just a second. I think as soon as I hit pause, I'm gonna remember. All right, I think it's recording again. I just hit pause for like 1 or 2 seconds and remembered. It was on a safe start. So anytime you start the truck during an inspection, like when DOT is testing you to get your license, every time you start the truck, you have to go through a safe start, in which you say that the gear is in neutral, the parking brakes are applied, clutch is engaged, and then you turn the key to the on position, and then you start it. Well, part of the in-cab inspection is to do a safe start, and whenever you turn the key on, you state that all of the warning lights came on, including the ABS, and they all went back off. That's you inspecting your lights and your ABS to make sure it's functioning properly. Because if the ABS light stays on, it means ABS is not working properly. Well, I asked Cindy if the indicator light portion of the safe start was just for the in-cab inspection, or if it was actually part of the safe start. So every time we do a safe start, is the indicator light portion of it part of it? And she said, yes, it is. And so I, like 3 seconds later, I start to do a safe start, and I talk about the indicator lights because I'm on another part of the inspection, and I'm starting the truck up. And she says, well, you already talked about the lights earlier, so you don't have to talk about the lights now. And I said, that is what I just asked you before I did this. Is the indicator light and the ABS light portion of the safe start, is that just for the inspection, or is that part of every single safe start that we do? And she said, well, it's a good habit, and you should do it. She realized what she had just told me, and then she realized that she just contradicted herself, and then she contradicted herself again and told me to go ahead and talk about the warning lights, because like it was really annoying. I think what the problem is that I have previous driving experience. There's not really anything she's correcting me on when I'm driving the truck around, so she's taking every opportunity she can to try to correct me on stuff. And it's really annoying because I'm spending a tremendous amount of time memorizing all this stuff and doing everything. And then she's like, the type of criticism that they're giving me is not helpful at all. Like when somebody criticizes you when you're doing something correctly, it's like detrimental to your training. So it started out as annoying and then frustrating, and if it continues, it's going to get to the point where it just pisses me off. I don't know. Like I'm starting to get to that point where it's pissing me off. So I'm really hoping that like this is the last day we have to deal with it, because the excuse today was that Cindy said that she was just starting all over with us because she didn't trust anything Russ had told us up to this point. So I don't know. I don't think every class is like ours. I think we just we're in this weird period where I think one of their instructors got fired and another one might have retired or quit, and they're training in a new instructor, and there's just like some drama going on there, and we are unfortunately having to deal with that. So, but all in all, all this drama stuff that I'm talking about, the venting, again, it's like last time I talked about drama stuff. It's not really that big of a deal. We were there for approximately 8 hours today, and the drama stuff was maybe, what was it? We pre-tripped for about an hour, hour and a half, maybe roughly an hour and a half at the beginning of the day, and that was Russ like not knowing how to do a pre-trip. Well, not knowing how to do the CDL University way. So there's like an hour, hour and a half of just I don't want to deal with that, and then just a couple of minor little things that uh, with getting some contradictory information later in the day. So all in all, it wasn't bad at all. It's pretty nice. Um, Keith started driving really well today. Um, the other two people in the class have improved. But they still got a decent ways to go. I'm sure by the end of the week they'll be shifting without grinding and stuff like that. There were a couple of close calls where the two people that are still struggling a bit, I can't remember if both of them did it or if it was just one of them, but one of the guys almost, like, he was having issues like with what he should do with his clutch and his brake, and he almost went into an intersection on a red light like twice, 2 or 3 times. He almost drove us into an intersection. it was a bit scary. That was about it. So I'm probably not. I don't think I'm going to try to memorize anything tonight because I just couldn't go to sleep last night. I don't know what was going on. I woke up around 11 a.m. Sunday. I slept in a bit, but I didn't sleep in like till 5 o'clock in the afternoon or anything crazy to where I wouldn't be able to sleep that night. But for some reason, I tried to go to bed around 9 p.m. last night. And I just ended up laying in bed for an hour or two, and then I watched some YouTube videos, and then around midnight I tried going back to sleep again. And the last time I remember looking over the clock, it was like 1:45, and I think I fell asleep shortly after that. So I slept from like 2 a.m. till 5:45 is when the alarm goes off. So 3 hours and 45 minutes. So I'm really tired today. I'm not going to try to memorize anything tonight. I'm just going to get some sleep, hopefully sleep really well, and then try to memorize stuff tomorrow. I need to remember to bundle up tomorrow because they said that we're most likely going to be backing, and they said when we're out doing backing that we're going to be standing outside all day long. And they can't tell us for sure what we're going to be doing on any given day. They said what they typically do is if it's a good weather day, then we go and we back because that involves standing outside. And if it's a bad weather day, then we will just drive around town, practice driving. I thought, well, most of us thought that we would do like driving around town first half of the day, backing second half of the day. But it sounds like we're doing one or the other all day long. So I am really looking forward to this crap being over with. I probably shouldn't think about it. Oh my god, we're already at 29 minutes. This is probably going to be like 40 minutes. I got a lot more rambling. So what I'm going to talk about now is just like where I'm at in the grand scheme of things in my plan. So I knew when all of this started, 30 minutes and I'm just now getting rid of the glare. Sorry. I knew when all of this started that it was a bunch of crap that I would have to put up with to eventually get to a point where things would be decent. And the first place where things should start to take a turn for the better is going to be after I get my own truck and I start running off the load board. That is going to be the first point where, like, I should be in a position better than I was whenever I started this whole thing. I should be making more money right then, like immediately. As soon as I get my own truck, I should start making more money, and my quality of life and everything should improve greatly. But everything to get there is going to suck. So CDL school sucks. It is just a tremendous amount of things to memorize and learn. And it's not so much learning to drive or learning to pre-trip. It's learning how to pass the stupid exam, the inspection, the test to get your license. It's such a pain in the butt. And I bet you could pull almost any, like, if you took everyone that has a CDL that hasn't been to a CDL school within the last 6 months and threw them into a licensing test, I bet the majority of them couldn't pass. They'd fail on the pre-trip, and they'd probably fail on the driving and skills test. So this is just like a necessary evil. I hate the testing in CDL school. If it actually filtered out people that should not be behind the wheels of these trucks, then I would be all for the massive pain in the butt testing that you have to go through to get a CDL. But most of these CDL schools just teach someone like a 3-step process to do like a backing, or they take them around the road course that the CDL people, the examiners take people on and get them. It's just memorizing a road course and memorizing like a specific maneuver. You don't know how to perform those out in the real world. You don't know how to drive in the real world. You've just memorized the exam. It's like dumping a certification. For anybody who, I work in IT, and, Microsoft certs, VMware certs, and stuff like that. Paper certed. There's a lot of paper certed people in the CDL industry, in the commercial driving, truck driving. There's a lot of people that dumped their CDL by going to some school that just had them memorize the test. So it's enough of me venting about that. Ooh, the screen just got stuck up on processing or something for a split second. The next step is going to be going to orientation. I'm going to have to set through videos and stuff, which isn't too bad. It's going to be a little annoying. Orientation days in most jobs are lax, easy days where you take long lunches and long breaks, and your day starts a little late and ends a little early. That's not typically how orientation goes in trucking. In trucking, your days are usually really long, your breaks are short or non-existent, and your lunches are short. They're trying to cram a lot into a little in trucking, and the trucking industry just works on long days. So I've heard of people on orientation days doing like 12-hour days or more. So orientation's probably not going to be too terribly fun. And then the last major pain in the butt thing is going to be training with whatever company I go to, most likely USA Truck, and having to live in a very tiny space with a complete stranger for a month. I think I ranted a little bit about that in my last video, and it's just hard to explain to somebody how weird that is. it's really just hard to convey trucking in general to somebody who's never has no experience with it. It's very weird. But once I get past that part, then I get my own truck. And then, most everything is decent at that point. My only negatives that I have to deal with at that point are mainly the dispatchers or driver managers. So they're still going to be in control of my destiny. And that can be very frustrating. I will say that I've never had a dispatcher that I liked. I've had dispatchers that were worse than others. The best dispatcher I ever had was the last time I was over the road for some small company that was like less than 50 trucks. The dispatcher kept me running. I didn't do a whole lot of sitting around waiting on loads. If I did sit around waiting on loads, I was told why, and I was told that we expect to have something by this time. And I typically wasn't harassed all day long with messages, so I was able to go take a nap while I waited on a load. When I drove for Swift, that wasn't the case. I was tied to my Qualcomm the entire time I was waiting on a load. I wasn't able to take a nap, and I might sit there for 8 to 10 hours, and then all of a sudden they give me a load that I have to go drive for 11 hours, and I've already been awake for 18, 20 hours. That was typical with Swift. They were the worst dispatchers I've ever had. But the only bad thing I would say about the dispatcher I had in my last over-the-road job, the only negative I would say is they didn't really look at the places that I was picking up or delivering to. And there were a bunch of places that I picked up from or delivered to that weren't designed for 70-foot vehicles. And if they would have looked up the address on a satellite view or something, which is what I plan on doing whenever I'm picking my loads on the load board. I plan on getting the address and looking at it, and I'm not going to go to some place that isn't designed for trucks. But they didn't do that, and whenever they were picking my loads. And the other thing was that they were running off some kind of dispatch formula. There are two basic methods to dispatching. You either do a triangle or some kind of rectangle or square. The premise behind it is, let's say that you don't know anything about trucking and you're coming into the industry with the expectation that, oh, I live in Oklahoma City. I just want to drive between Oklahoma City and Little Rock all day long. So I'm just going to do trips between Oklahoma City and Little Rock forever. And that's going to be the perfect trucker life. Well, you're going to find out that you're not going to make any money doing that. The way that the lanes work and the markets and everything work in trucking is that you have regions that pay better than other regions, and it's based off of the number of loads versus the number of drivers. So let's say that Ohio is a really good paying area and Oklahoma is a mediocre paying area. Whenever you take a load from almost any market into a market that pays really well, you usually take some kind of hit on that. So loads going into a market like Ohio, where the brokers know that whenever you come out of Ohio, you're going to make really good money. When they're giving you a load going into Ohio, they're going to try and screw you over. So what people do is they will go and run either a triangle or rectangle or square or whatever. They don't go directly between two good markets. So let's say you just want to run between Atlanta and Ohio. Well, Ohio loads pay really well, but Ohio going to Atlanta is probably not going to pay too terribly well because Atlanta is a good freight market. And I don't know if Atlanta is a good freight market. I'm just using this as an example. I'm making this up. So let's say that loads coming out of Ohio normally pay like $4 a mile. Well, this one going into Atlanta, since Atlanta is a good freight market, is only paying $2.80 a mile. So you don't want to go out of Ohio to Atlanta. So you want to go out of Ohio to kind of a mediocre market or a bad market. So you go, I don't know, just whatever mediocre market. Let's say Oklahoma. Oklahoma's probably not a good destination point, but let's say you go from Ohio to Oklahoma. And then you go from Oklahoma to somewhere else, and then somewhere else, and then somewhere else. Basically, you find lanes that pay well, and you're going to have to at least go to one extra destination. Running between 2 points is typically not going to pay well. I say all of that to get back onto topic on the way that they were dispatching me. They were going by, they just went through dispatcher school or something, and they were running me in a rectangle. My rectangle was LA, somewhere in the southeast to Midwest. They really didn't like running me past the Missouri River or the Mississippi River. I forget which one it is. Basically the one that splits the country in half. They didn't like running me east of that, but they did run me to Ohio, to Indianapolis. No, it wasn't Ohio. Indianapolis, Indiana. And that was kind of like a big deal. They were like, "We have a really nice load going to Indianapolis. Would you be willing to go to Indianapolis?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." LA, I think it was LA to Indianapolis. But I ran kind of like a rectangle. LA was a place that I always went. And then either Northern California or Oregon or Washington, somewhere in the northwest area up there. So I would typically go from the northwest down to LA and then out to somewhere like Dallas, or maybe up to Indiana or Michigan, or maybe I would go to Dallas and then go up to like Michigan and then back across. I basically ran in either a rectangle or sometimes a triangle, but I always went to the northwest. I always went to LA, and then I would either go to 1 or 2 points in the Midwest to south, like Midwest, South, the central part of the country. So what I didn't like about that was LA, and basically driving through California. I hated California. California is an anti-trucking state. If you've never driven a truck, it's hard to explain how much of an anti-trucking state California is. Give you an example. Speed limit in California is, I don't know what, let's say 70 is their standard interstate speed limit. Traffic will cruise along at 85 miles an hour in California normally. Like, you see people going 80, 90 miles an hour everywhere. The truck speed limit across the entire state, regardless of what any posted speed limit is, the maximum speed a truck can go in California is 55 miles an hour. And Highway Patrol will pull you over if you are going 56 in a truck. And the other thing is, and I'm not sure if they still enforce this because I haven't been in California in like 15 years in a truck, but right lane. Trucks are only allowed in the right lane on interstates in California unless specifically designated. Like sometimes they'll have signs that say trucks okay or something like that for a lane. That's the only exception in California. And if you are outside of that right-hand lane and you are going faster than 55 miles an hour, which the only time you should be outside that right-hand lane is to pass somebody. And if you are going over 55 to pass somebody, then you're going to get a ticket. That's just absurd. Like, you have people going 30 miles an hour faster than you, just flying by you. It is so dangerous to have vehicles moving like at such different speeds on the same road. Dumb. But where are we at? Holy crap, this could be one of my longest videos. And it's a really negative video. I'm so sorry for being so negative, but this is like my therapy. This is me just kind of getting stuff off my chest. Thanks for watching. Bye.